Working from the raw production tracks, sound designer Ben Burt would add a critical new layer to the film. Burt had spent a year building a catalog of sounds for things that didn't exist in our galaxy.
George introduced the idea of what he called an organic soundtrack. George thought that Chewbacca might be made up from recordings of dogs or maybe even bears. In addition, I recorded some lions and tigers and even some walruses. I would begin editing them together and making little phrases out of the noises. I would take the recordings and edit the best pieces. You know, the bear might make a sound that sounded angry, or they might make a sound that was cute, or a sound that sounded like a sentence, a wah, wah, wah kind of a sound.
Well, you said it, Chewie.
The voice of R2 turned out to be the most difficult problem to solve in the sound design of the first movie, because R2 had to act alongside of the other actors. And the script only said that R2 made a sound, or maybe R2 beeped. I had a small electronic synthesizer, and I did some patches with it and made up some electronic sounds. But that didn't sound alive. At one point, we talked about R2's personality, and we felt that he was developing kind of as a toddler. So I did a lot of baby recordings. And eventually, we found that in the discussion of R2's voice, we were making the sounds ourselves. A few experiments led to the combination of using my voice doing baby talk, beeps and boops, with the electronic synthesizer. So R2 is sort of 50% machine and 50% organic, coming out of, you know, the performance of a person. The breathing for Vader was recorded by putting a little tiny microphone down inside a regulator on a scuba tank. And I breathed through the mask itself, and it breathed in and out of that came the various, you know, paces of Vader breathing. And that sound worked out pretty successfully.
Finding the right voice for Darth Vader was another challenge.
And action!
Lucas had never intended to use the on-set vocal performance of David Prowse.
Start tearing this ship apart piece by piece until you find those tapes. Find the passengers of this vessel. I want them alive!
I can still hear David Prowse's accent in the Darth Vader mask, muffled, because he would do the real dialogue. He's trying to curse Carrie Fisher or something.
Sent you.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a member of the Imperial Senate on a diplomatic...
You are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take her away.
It was hilarious and terrifying at the same time, because we didn't know what Darth sounded like. That was the first time we heard him. We're like, is that it? Is it going to be some Scottish guy, or what is this?
Prowse's voice would later be replaced with a more menacing performance, provided by classically trained stage and film actor James Earl Jones.
George had hired David Prowse, but he said he wanted a so-called darker voice, and not in terms of ethnic, but in terms of timbre. And the rumor is that he thought of Orson Welles, and then probably thought that Orson might be too recognizable. So what he ends up is picking a voice that was born in Mississippi, raised in Michigan, and was a stutterer. And that happened to be my voice.
I want to know what happened to the plans they sent you.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a member of the Imperial Senate on a diplomatic mission to Alderaan.
You are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take her away!
C-3PO's voice struck us all as, you know, well, we gotta do something about that.
24 Tech 3.
We seem to be made to suffer. It's our loss in life.
It was mentioned a number of times that C-3PO might sound like a used car salesman, not the English butler type.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I must have fallen over.
I just came up with this voice of an over-the-top British butler. British because that would be my natural mode of thinking. A butler because that was his role in life. Nervous because that was his feeling in life. And it came as C-3PO human-cyborg relations.
And this is my counterpart, R2-D2.
Hello.
few people were brought in to record, and an attempt was made to see how 3PO would be with different kinds of voices.
I believe 30 actors coming in, some really quite impressive names.
Stan Freberg and a few others were auditioned.
Apparently one of them was a major cartoon actor, a man of literally 1,000 voices, who eventually said, you know something, George, Tona's voice is pretty good for the character. Why didn't you just use his voice?
And eventually the discussion just quieted down, and it was an excellent performance. It synchronized with his body motions. It was a total character which he created. His track was left in the movie.
Hey, we don't serve their kind here.
What?
Your droids. They'll have to wait outside. We don't want them here.
Why don't you wait out by the speeder? We don't want any trouble.
I heartily agree with you, sir.
428, take 7.
Action.
Here we go. Cutting the sublight engines.
At long last, the editing, sound, and visual effects were taking shape.